Western hunting, backcountry, wilderness. It inspires all kinds of romantic ideas, and likely you have some visions of Western hunting if you live anywhere but the rugged Wild West. As I look outside at beautiful snow-covered Rocky Mountains, you might have ideas about Western hunting. Some of them true, some of them not true. Western hunting myth. That's what we're going to talk about today on Gunfighter Life. Welcome to the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, the right way, with God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I'm blessed to serve you as host. Bio is in the show notes. On the West, I moved out west, joined the Marine Corps at 17, went to combat, but when I wasn't in combat, I was stationed out west. And pretty much since then, very brief times I've gone back to visit my family, but whenever I get east of the Mississippi, I just want to get back out west. I love the West. I love the freedom of the West. As I look right now out the window at millions, literal millions of acres of public land that joins millions of acres of public land. When I hunt places like the Frank Church, the River of No Return Wilderness, the Sawtooth, when you visit places Lolo, Bitter Roots, Medicine Bow, when you're walking on the Lewis and Clark Trail, maybe sleeping in a place that they slept, along the Clearwater River. If you're a man that loves freedom and wide open places, nothing compares to the West. I love the American West. I've lived in the West from the Canadian border to down in Arizona, all over the West. I love the West. It's a beautiful, rugged country. And I want you to love the West, and I want you to come hunt the West. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I get nothing for this. I just think for the average American man that spends too much time inside or hunts out of a tree stand, you might really, really love hunting the West. And I think sadly there's a lot of myth perpetuated by, greed and money when you get down to the bottom of it, that may prevent a lot of people from coming and hunting and enjoying the West. What got me thinking about this, and we may go some other places with this, but what got me thinking about this is the fact that there's this big push, and it's not new, it goes in cycles, but especially the last several years, maybe decade, of this super long range, heavy, shooting off a bench or off a tripod, shooting at extremely long ranges with match type bullets, and they market it as Western hunting. It's a myth. And the reason they get away with it is because the vast majority of Americans don't live in the Wild West. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming. And so they see all these supposed experts, influencers, whatever, talking about all this new kit that they're Western hunting with because they're getting paid. They're taking sponsors. I don't take bribes on this show. You shall take no bribe, for a bribe blinds the eyes of the wise and twists the words of the righteous. I did a whole episode on Patreon recently on Leviathan. You might want to look up Leviathan in regards to guns and see what's going on with that whole deal. I don't want to get into that on this, but picture this, and this is all kinds of companies, all kinds of influencers. You get a company that wants to sell a new product. And so to sell a new product, they pay for an influencer to go somewhere and use their product in hopes that that one person will inspire many, many, many other people to get that product, whether or not that product is good. Okay, so if we go with this thing that's being pushed now, you get whatever the hot new cartridge is this year. Like, the 7mm backcountry is so hot right now, so the 7mm PRC that was hot last year, maybe not so hot anymore. And you might as well ride a dinosaur up the Rocky Mountains if you want to hunt with a 7mm Remington Magnum or a 30-06. So you get your new gun, which of course needs a whole bunch of new stuff on it, in a new cartridge with a really high-end scope with maybe a custom dial, a bunch of fidget spinners for men on it, super high magnification, and then of course your rifle and everything is going to be really heavy, so you're either going to have to upgrade it and get carbon fiber this, carbon fiber that, or you're going to have to get a bipod, a tripod, and then maybe a tripod for something else, and then maybe a spotting scope, and then that stuff starts to get heavy, so you might need a side-by-side or a quad, so, what's $50,000 worth of stuff? Laser rangefinders. And you get all these influencers from all these places talking about this, and then people actually believe that you need this to hunt the West. Meanwhile, people that actually live out here hunt all the time with a 30-30 or a 30-06 or a 270. Those are probably some of the almost certainly the most popular cartridges. With a basic rifle, with a scope, and they've been taking deer and elk every year for decades. Right? They know that stuff's not true, but if you live, east of the Mississippi, you might think you actually need that stuff to kill an elk. As if somehow you can kill an elk with archery, you can kill an elk with muzzleloader, you can kill an elk short-range weapons, but the second that day starts for rifle season, you need $50,000 worth of kit to go out and kill an elk. I think even those influencers, even if they were being honest, if you asked them, can I just bring a 30-06 with a pretty vanilla scope, make sure it's sighted in, and go hunt the Rockies, go hunt the Wild West, and take bear, wolf, elk, mule deer, western whitetail, pronghorn, they would say yes, you can. But that's not the game, right? The game is to get you to spend all kinds of money. And I'm for companies making money. I'm for capitalism, right? Just don't get bamboozled into thinking you need that stuff to hunt the West. Again, people all over the West, all over here, hunt 30-06, 7 Rem Mag, without a rangefinder, without a side-by-side. Would look at you sideways if you tried to hand them a tripod. I took my elk this year with a shotgun slug. Right? You don't need all this stuff. Now, I want to be nice. I want to be fair. If you want to buy all that stuff because you just like the latest and greatest kit, there are plenty of those guys out there. And if that's you and you earned that money honestly, I don't care. Enjoy it. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. If you want a carbon fiber wrapped 7mm backcountry $5,000 rifle with the tripod and the $20,000-$30,000 side-by-side and a laser rangefinder and a Kestrel and a giant OB scope on the top that's a fidget spinner for men for all kinds of dials and this thing and that thing, and you want to use a computer and look on your phone and use OnX and do all this stuff, if you want to do that, enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine as long as you earn that money honestly and that's what you want to spend it on, do it. But if not, don't think that you can't come out here with a 308 or a 30-06 with a rifle that's sighted in. Obviously, if you drive a long way or fly, confirm 0 when you get here. But a 30-06, a 308 with a scope, a good pair of boots, and get out and hunt the West. You can. People do it all the time, especially locals that are from here. So that's a big myth that you need all this specialty stuff to hunt the West. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've killed probably the majority of my elk with the 243 because it's just what I had in a light handy rifle, and I had it for a lot of years, and I put a lot of notches in that stock. I wouldn't recommend that for elk unless you are a very skilled and patient hunter. I was a pretty accomplished hunter. I grew up poor hunting on the East Coast. In the South, if I'm being honest, poaching to put meat on the table. But I was already a pretty accomplished hunter and competition shooter and things like that when I moved out west. That's just what I could afford, and it was light and handy, and I've taken many elk with it. And you can use a 243 for elk if you wait for a really good shot opportunity and you're patient. And if you don't get the shot, you're going to let the elk walk if you know enough about yourself. But I would say, in general, if you have a 308 or better, and you can argue whether the 308 or the 270 is more powerful, but 308, 270 and up, and you have a good scoped rifle in that caliber or any that would fall into that category, 7mm 08 and up. 7mm 08, 308, 270, 280, obviously the 30-06, and a scope. Come out here with a good pair of boots and a map. You'd be better off taking your time getting a gym membership and getting in good shape and bringing the rifle that you have, and forget about all the other stuff and forget about spending thousands of dollars, and instead just maybe take some time off work and come enjoy the West. So that's a big myth that you need all this stuff. Now, if you want to hunt that way, if you want to sit there and dial and fidget spin and sit down on your butt all day in glass and shoot off a tripod with a big heavy rifle, you can do that. That's certainly better than eating meat wrapped in cellophane sold at the market. But don't think that you need that. And I kind of fell into this trap when I moved out west. It would have been the early 2000s. And I was like, I'm going to get back into hunting after, after going to war and stuff. I was like, I'm going to get back into hunting, and after a few years of a break. And it costs a lot more, I think, compared to adjusted for inflation and lifestyle today. But this isn't the first time they've been pushing this long range stuff. Back when the laser rangefinders really became available on the commercial market, they may not have been as good. They may have been expensive. You may have needed a custom rifle, but you could shoot really long range. And I started getting into that, and I thought, I'm going to hunt Western. I especially want to hunt pronghorn antelope. They're a cool animal. I'm going to get into that. And I went and did all this stuff, and I went out and actually hunted, and I shot my pronghorn at like 150 yards. And I think I saw another one pop up like 75 yards. And I was like, well, maybe I don't need all this stuff. Maybe I can just spot and stalk and use skill and tracking and hunt. And I have. And that's how I love to hunt. Spot and stalk and still hunting. And that's how I love to hunt. Now, again, if you want to ride around on a quad and use big giant binoculars and a tripod, you can certainly do that. I would be lying if I said that wasn't effective. It is effective. And a lot of people just get into the hobby so they can spend money. There's nothing wrong with that. Again, if that's what you want to do, but don't think that you need it. That's a big myth, that every elk you see is going to be at 800 yards and you need some super long range cartridge. You don't. If you're halfway competent at fieldcraft, you can almost, I won't say always, but almost always get within 300 yards of an elk or a mule deer or pronghorn antelope. I routinely get, just for fun, because I got pronghorn right out back. I live in like an ocean of wilderness BLM land with little pocket of private property from a guy that he and I go way back, and I kind of live as a neo-nomad, and I'm on his property. I routinely see antelope in the backyard. I routinely just walk up and see how close I can get to them just for fun. And I routinely get within a couple hundred yards of them. I'm going to say it's easy, but you don't need... It's not true that you need mule deer. It's just not. Again, if you want to, that's fine. And if you want to be influenced by influencers that you need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on gear to hunt an elk, and you just want to do that, then do it. but you don't need to. Another big myth is that, like, bear are behind every corner trying to eat you. I live in a state where there's brown bear and black bear and wolves and mountain lion, moose, which can also sometimes be a problem. And if you've listened for any length of time, I don't have to justify that. I think as a man you should be prepared to put meat on the table and protect yourself and the ones that care about you. And that includes wild animals. But here's the thing, if you're an eastern hunter, to put this in perspective. Look up how many hunters die and are injured from falling out of tree stands every year. Look that number up. And then look up how many people, not just hunters, but people, period, in the entire United States, east and west, are killed by bears. You might not even find any this year at all that have been killed by wolves. So just be sober about that. You're more likely to get hurt or killed in a car accident on your way to go hunting than you are from a bear. And again, do I think you should be able to protect yourself against bear? Of course I do. But don't be paranoid about it. And don't think you need some giant cannon strapped to your hip because there's a bear behind every bush that's going to hunt you down and kill you. Does it happen? Yeah, it happens, but people also fall down the stairs and die all the time. Hopefully you don't have a phobia of stairs. Again, tree stands, a lot more people die from falling out of tree stands, I'm almost certain, in America than die from bear. And that's just hunters and deer stands pretty much, and that's every American and bear. Look up those numbers, So I think that's another myth that people over and hyperfixate on. If you want to buy a new gun, if you want to buy a big bore revolver or a 10mm, I'm not your wife. You don't have to justify your gun purchases to me. If you want to get it and you've earned it honestly and you're not going into debt, then get it. But don't think that you need it. If you have a good carry gun, you're probably going to be carrying a rifle or a shotgun. Be prepared. Be trained. Don't worry about it. I think that also is a myth. If you really have a desire, and you don't have to, you may not want to hunt the West at all, but if you have a desire to come hunt the West and be in wild places, what I'm more concerned about for you is that you think that you need a laser rangefinder and some super fancy custom rifle and some super new cartridge and tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. So you work at it and work at it and work at it and hoard this stuff up, and then the next year something new comes out and you spend your money on that and you never actually come out west and hunt. Instead, take the deer rifle that you have, assuming it's of, again, 270, 30-06 or bigger. If you're coming out to hunt deer or antelope, 243, anything like that would be okay. Take what you have, maybe talk to one of your buddies, split some gas money, hop in the truck, throw a sleeping bag or two back there so you can sleep in the back of the truck. Bring a tent, bring stuff you probably already have. Bring a good pair of boots. If you don't have a good pair of binos, a decent pair of binos, they don't have to cost a lot of money, but a good pair of binos, a good pair of boots, a map that are usually free at BLM offices or U.S. Forest Service offices, a map, a compass, and come out and come hunt. Find out where you can get a decent tag over the counter. That's getting harder now than it used to be, but there are still plenty of decent over-the-counter opportunities for tags, especially if it's not just about elk. I really like elk because I hunt for food, and elk tag for me is $39 or $49 or something like that, and it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds of meat. So yeah, I like elk for that, but there's western whitetail, there's mule deer, there's pronghorn, there's black bear. There's wolves a lot of times. Some places year-round you can hunt wolf. So, again, if you want to spend your money on any of that stuff, go ahead. But don't be bamboozled into thinking that you have to, or that somehow you can't kill an elk, or everybody's going to laugh at you if you come out here with that stuff. With just a plain Jane rifle and scope and a pickup truck and good boots, a compass, a map. Heck, except for the license plate, you come out here like that, they might mistake you for a local, because that's how a lot of these guys hunt. instead of the guy from back east that has got tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. As a local drives by you in a beat up old pickup truck with a 6x6 elk in the back and a 30-06 he's had for decades. So I just wanted to kind of talk about that. I know that's going to buck the trend of what a lot of people are trying to tell you, but you do your own research, judge for yourself, do what you want. Again, if you want to spend the money, go ahead. I just don't like seeing people get taken advantage of. If you buy that stuff, just know that you're doing it because you want to do it, not because you need it. And I know this time of year is not really the peak of Western hunting season, but maybe it'll get you thinking about planning a hunt and sway you in that direction. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all that you do. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.